I would like to welcome everybody with the York County Library to tonight's program. We're going to discuss paying for college for our teens and their families. And we are very fortunate tonight to have a speaker from South Carolina Student Loan. So we have Destra Capers. So thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this. I think that makes me a nerd, but it's okay. Someone has to talk about paying for college, and I'm glad to do it.
And we are glad that you are here to help us because I know I have a lot of questions, and we have some teens out there who have some questions. So, would you like to start with some general info? Would you like some questions? How would you like to start?
We can Let's start with some questions, and then we can kind of hop into the information that I have, which may spark where I start based upon the questions that are asked.
Okay. So, my first question is, when do you need to start looking into loans or paying for college?
Great question. I'm going to split it into two because although loans is one of the ways to pay for college, you can start looking at scholarships and how to pay for college way before you would be looking at loans. So paying for college, there's a couple different ways that you can pay for college. We want as many people to get as much free money as possible. So the number one thing that you will hear schools talk about, hear parents talk about, and hear students talk about would be scholarships. And I have a slide, and we're going to talk about where to look for it, how to do it, and all that jazz. So grades students would be one way that you would be able to earn a scholarship. So there are academic scholarships, there are admission scholarships, and then there are scholarships based upon like a skill or a talent or even your academics. So if you have a hobby, more than likely there's a scholarship out there for it. So for example, I was at a rural school looking at their scholarship board, and there was a scholarship for golf. You didn't have to play it in a competitive manner. They said if golfing is your hobby, apply for this scholarship. So that just shows you that there are lots of different ways to find scholarships. So you can start doing that really as early as middle school, if not elementary school. If you look at some of the larger organizations like Google, they do a $25,000 scholarship every single year in different categories. So scholarships is one way, right? And then we also have some state aid that's based upon your grades as well. So once you start taking those English ones and Algebra 1 classes, that starts to build your GPA for high school, your grade point average for high school. So don't play around in those classes. Take those classes seriously because those will follow you until you graduate. Now, when it comes to loans, you actually will probably start looking at those once you know exactly what school you're going to attend and how much money that school is going to give you. So if that school is, once you apply, you get accepted, you're going to complete your FAFSA. We're going to talk about that as well. That's going to help the school create this financial award letter that will let you know how much free aid you have and then other aid that you're eligible for. Once you see the bottom line, if you have more money than you need, then you're going to see a negative. If you see a positive number, that usually means that you still have a balance with that school. And that's when families will truly start to look for loans. I hope we get a chance to talk about understanding your loan options tonight. But really, your senior year, probably April, May time frame is really when you would lean hard into looking for loans. But understanding them, you can absolutely do as soon as possible.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great information. The difference there. I did not even think about loans not coming in until after you know what school you're going to. And we
Absolutely.
do have some information. I'm sure you're going to have some information about scholarships. But if anybody is watching, the York County Library, we also have some information. So if you wanted to come in and talk with us about scholarships, we have a search that you can do at the library. So I just want to mention that as well.
Fantastic.
So how I really would like to know how to avoid going into debt for school. If there are some options, to avoid going into debt to get some higher education. And if
Yeah.
you have some tips on that.
So that's a big buzzword right now. And probably even before debt relief was a thing, millennials have been screaming about how much debt that they are in because of the education they pursued after high school. So one of the things that I think is really important that students and families can do before we even start looking at college is to volunteer. So if you know that you're interested in a certain area, let's say um, healthcare, because it's just easy, it's just simple, right? If you're interested in healthcare, I would highly recommend for you to do some volunteering at your local hospital or at a nursing facility. Ask questions about people's journeys. How did they get to where they are? And then reflect after you do those types of experiences, have those types of experiences. So, what did you like? What didn't you like? Is it that you like helping people, but you don't like touching people, right? So, if you don't like touching people, is there a way for you to help people in healthcare and not necessarily have to touch them? Absolutely. Medical laboratory technicians, you have social workers, you have nutrition. So, someone has to feed people while they are ill, right? And so those are just some of the ways that you can still be in a field and not be exposed to the things that you don't like. So volunteer, absolutely. I would also recommend for you to be open to looking at the pathways it takes to get to where you're trying to go. So, an example of this would be if you want to be an educator and your desire is to go out of state to be an educator, no problem at all. I speak to lots of students who are interested in that field and they just want to get away from South Carolina and experience something new. But the problem with that one problem that could come with that is that as you attend a school that's out of state, you're leaving money that's free money that's in state, right? And so your education is going to cost more and you're leaving scholarships behind. So be open to exploring the 2+2 pathway. Can you start at a technical school and then transfer to your 4-year school through a bridge program or through an articulation program that will help you save money? So really, most students can get through that technical journey without any loans, any debt, and then transfer to that 4-year institution. Your degree is not valued any less because you started at a 2-year school and transferred to a 4-year school. That's the path that I took. And I'm absolutely not in as much debt as some of my counterparts. So know what your starting salary is going to be, not the median salary, you guys, but the starting salary for the areas that you're interested in. Does it make sense to go out of state if that's truly what you're interested in doing, especially if that school is not offering you a full tuition and housing ride? So that means you are not having to pay any money out of pocket. And be open to exploring other pathways and options to help you get to where you're trying to go.
I love that. That's excellent advice. And do you know, I know York Technical College here in Rock Hill, they have some great programs. But they were doing free classes. Do you know if the technical schools are still doing that? Or is that just a COVID bump?
Great question. So, all 16 of our technical schools across the state received millions of dollars for the tuition uh, free, I believe is what they were calling it, or zero tuition, right? From my understanding, that is coming to an end from the multiple financial aid offices that I've been speaking to. And so, starting in the summer semester of this year, tuition will go back into effect. So therefore, you will have to understand how you're going to pay for your educational pathway. So in that, I will say remember that going to college or pursuing either a 2-year or 4-year degree, it's not just your tuition alone that you will be paying. So there are fees, there are books, there are indirect costs that are associated with going to college as well. So if you think about going to a 4-year school, you would think about your living expenses, whether it's on campus or off campus. If you have to eat while you're there. So they have to charge you for that as well. If you're in a certain program that requires background checks, uniforms, insurance, then you'll need to make sure that is covered as well. And financial aid is there to help you do that. And then if you're looking at a 2-year school, maybe it's your commute back and forth to school. So your transportation, your bus passes, and even sometimes meals or living expenses, laptops can be incorporated in that as well. So it's not just your tuition, you guys. It's also those indirect costs that help you pursue your education that you would need to consider. But to answer your question, Krista, from my understanding, that free tuition is going to end at the end of this spring semester. That can change at a drop of a dime, as the
Sure.
administration sees it. So that's the word
Okay.
on for right now.
Okay. And what if you are undecided? You don't have, a direct idea yet. You're kind of going to college. You want to kind of see what things are doing. Do you have any recommendations there? I know I love the idea of talking with somebody in the industry or the field that you're in, but if you don't have that direction, um, you know, I know there are a lot that go in undecided.
Mhm. Yeah,
Are
so I
there
would say
any tips and tricks for that? Would you recommend just staying with a state school, or what do you think?
um, you can look at this two ways, right? So one way would be if you got a full ride to go to a school in state or out of state and you're not quite sure what you want to major in. The question is, does it still make sense to go to that institution if we're not sure what we want to major in? And the reason why I say that is because that freshman year that you take to explore and do some self evaluation and exploration, you're taking those courses, but your full ride is going to cover 4 years of education. So while you're really still trying to navigate and understand what you're interested in, and you're taking classes, and hopefully they are general enough and can apply to what you eventually graduate with, I would caution, um, or be aware of the fact that it may add another year. So even though your degree is 4 years, it may bump you into a 5-year student, which is not a bad thing. Your degree, once again, is still worth um, what it's supposed to be. So if it is an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, it doesn't matter how fast you get it done. It just matters that you completed it. Okay. The other side of that is practically knowing that there's a lot of student loan debt floating around out here that can make people feel like they're underwater sooner rather than later and doesn't give them the freedom to live the lifestyle that they would like to lead. I wouldn't, I personally, not South Carolina student loan, Destra Capers, would personally recommend for a student to start at their technical school and take those general education classes while they are maybe working and or volunteering in an area of interest. I know I keep bringing up volunteering, but it's a free way to explore a career of your interest, either solidify or change, expose you to something that you never even knew existed, right? And so most students, their freshman year at a technical school, their schedule is flexible enough to allow them to experience those things. At a 4-year school, usually they want you to be in at least 5 classes a semester. So usually 15 credit hours, so you don't have to go over the summer, which could make your load a little heavier and a little harder to actually have a part-time job your freshman year, while you're still getting adjusted to living on campus and being away from family. And now we're going to add a job on top of that. It can definitely add stress either way, 2 or 4 year institution. So um, if you're undecided, really, I'm just going to go back to exploring different careers, asking questions, leaning into those things that you're really good at. I always say YouTube and now TikTok is a really great place to explore careers if you're not an extrovert and don't feel comfortable asking strangers, like, how did you get here? You have a pet, you go to the veterinary clinic all the time, and you're like, I think I like pets. How do I become a veterinarian? And you may be a little nervous. I can almost guarantee you there is someone on YouTube or TikTok that has done a day in the life of a veterinarian, right? That would allow you to research as well. So being undecided is not abnormal. It is normal. Who knows truly what they want to do with the rest of their lives at 18, 17, 18 years old. So don't think it's odd. Don't think it's weird. It's okay if you don't know. Just be aware of where you're starting your educational journey after high school, because wherever you start, those credits will follow you wherever you go. And if you don't do well in those classes, it could affect your financial aid in the future. That was a
Okay.
long answer.
No, that was great. And I have one more question for you, and
Sure.
then maybe we can do your informational. But I wanted to ask you, I know this, if you're talking about loans, they're probably a little further along in their career, but for the younger students who are maybe wavering or thinking about dual enrollment,
Mhm.
um, would you recommend them going ahead and trying the dual enrollment because it could help them later on down the road? Or will that grade, if they don't do that well, affect that next step for them?
Now, that is a good question. And I don't know if a student asked that question or if this is Mama Krista coming out and like, what does it mean to take dual enrollment classes, college level classes while you are in high school? Just like the algebra one and English one or computer keyboarding class in middle school can follow you all the way through high school, the same thing happens with those dual enrollment classes. So if you have an opportunity to take advantage of enrolling in dual enrollment classes, whether it's on campus or on the computer, those are true college classes. So that means that your college GPA has begun. And so, if you don't take the class seriously, if you struggle and don't tap into resources to help you be successful, that can affect your financial aid moving forward. So, a perfect example of that would be you graduate from high school, you have a 3.0, and you start at a technical school, right? So, to get the life scholarship, you just need to graduate from high school with a 3.0 and go to a technical school. You've got that life scholarship. If you go to a four-year school, then they have some ACT or SAT requirements and some ranking that you need to be concerned about. But for the technical school, just the GPA is all you would need. However, you took a dual enrollment class, English 101, and you got a C in that class, right? And then you go to your technical school and you make straight B's. You killed it your first year. You're like, yes, I was able to maintain a B average while I was in college. So I will have my life scholarship the next year. But then what they do is they go back to your career GPA, all of your college classes that you took, and they factor in or average in that C that you took your senior year of high school when you were like, oh, I have senioritis, I am done. I'm just doing the bare minimum to get out and get this credit. And you will get your credit for that class. But now, since you made straight B's and you add that C in there, now you drop below that 3.0 and you're going to lose your life scholarship because you dropped below that 3.0 because of one class. You did great your freshman year, but that high school class, college, that dual enrollment class bumped you below that 3.0. And so now you lose, I believe it's still about $5,000. And you can earn it back, but you're going to have to wait a year to earn it back. So I would encourage students who have that opportunity to take it seriously, whether they're looking at a 2-year school or a 4-year institution, in state or out of state, it is starting your college uh, GPA, your college transcript. It will follow you all the way to grad school until you start that transcript. So just be careful, you guys. Even though it's free, even though you're taking it while you're in high school, it can follow you and it does follow you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. It might have been from a personal perspective, but I was just curious. And before
Yeah.
we only have a few more minutes in this session, then we're going to start another session. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one more question. We'll take a little bit of a break and then we'll do the slideshow. But ACT, SAT,
Mm.
is there a difference that they should focus on one or the other? And how much of a factor does that play into schools and loans?
Mm, good question. So SAT and ACT are college exams to kind of figure out if you would be successful at that institution. Over the past probably 5 to 7 years, conversation of the discussion of whether an ACT or SAT score truly dictates how successful you can be in a college has been put into question. And so a lot of institutions have become test optional, which is great for those students who are have high anxiety around testing. Okay. So it's optional, and some of our schools in South Carolina are test optional. Now, when it comes to financial aid, depending on the type of aid, it can absolutely affect whether you are eligible for certain financial aid options that are out there. So, for example, state funded Palmetto Fellows is a scholarship that's available through the Commission on Higher Education, and they are absolutely looking at SAT and ACT scores. This is money that has to stay in state. So, you just have to be extremely careful. Um, you could take both of them. You can take them multiple times. They both have a different skill set that they kind of focus on. So find the one that works best for you and lean towards that one. And give it your best shot. And if you're super close to hitting those benchmarks, then try again. But it can absolutely affect your financial aid. So if you saw the first session, we kind of got some questions answered, and hopefully we will be able to go a little bit deeper into some of that through our slides. So we're going to start with the FAFSA. So let's hop straight in. So if you are a junior or a senior in high school, you may have heard of this weird thing called the FAFSA, and we're going to talk about it. So this FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. I will tell you that the Department of Education and really the federal government, they love their acronyms. So the FAFSA is what you will need to complete once you know that you are interested in going to college. Not once you've been accepted, but when you think that you want to go to college, you want to get this completed. Everyone should complete the FAFSA every year that they are thinking of going to college, regardless of their income. I always say, don't say someone else's no for you. So, what does that mean? You may feel like you make too much money, but when you compare yourself to the rest of the country or the rest of the students at the school that you're attending, that may change. So, let your school tell you exactly what you qualify for. You will apply every single year that you plan to attend college. Now, this next bullet here says the FAFSA becomes available October 1st of each year. Now, this may be changing for the upcoming year. So, for my students who are rising seniors, this may be true and it may not be true. We're waiting on guidance from the Department of Ed. So, parents, students, just be prepared in October, but don't be surprised if it's not available October 1st of 2023. And then you're going to go to the studentaid.gov website, and that is where you will start your FAFSA process. So, what does the FAFSA do? Okay, so it's going to take student and parent income and asset information. It's going to look at the size of your household, currently how many students are in college. It's going to do some things behind the scene um, and determine your expected family contribution number. Don't be afraid of this number. For some, it may be closer to zero. Others, it may be closer to 6 figures. It is not a true bill. What it is doing, it is allowing the school to compare you to the student who's going to sit next to you in the fall. Okay. So this is not a bill. Don't be afraid. And just know that your financial aid office will use this to help award you. Now, one thing I want to mention about this free application is that it is free. So you should not be paying anyone to help you complete this free application for federal student aid. Okay, you guys, it's free. It's free 99. Do not have anyone or pay anyone to help you with this. There are so many resources from financial aid offices, from TRIO programs like EOC, as well as my office will help you complete your FAFSA. And then there's this great website called Going Merry that we're going to talk about in a little bit, okay? Another thing that I want to point out about the FAFSA is that the student and the parent will need to complete an FSA ID. Now, this is something that's going to be connected to your Social Security number, so you do not need to share your login information with anyone, okay? Um, Parents, you will complete a FSA ID for yourself connected to your social, and you will use that for each student or each child that is under you. You don't need to create multiple FSA IDs. Students, you will complete an FSA ID as well. So your parents cannot use their FSA ID to sign your document. Parent will sign, student will sign, two separate FSA IDs. I know you're probably saying, why are you talking so much about this FSA ID? It's because it's the number one question that we get when parents start completing the FAFSA, okay? Two separate FSA IDs. Another thing I want to point out about the FAFSA is that you have the ability to put up to 10 colleges and universities in the United States listed here, okay? So don't be afraid to put your top choice all the way down to your 10th choice, and that is who will receive your FAFSA. You can update and remove and edit this as you see fit. All right, so we talked about this. What information is needed for the FAFSA? So student parent income information as well as assets. Parents, who is considered a parent? So that's a biological or adoptive parent, or if you have or information from a legal guardian, that's not someone whose information is needed. It must be biological or adoptive parent, okay? Now, if your parents are divorced or separated, it's usually going to be the parent with whom the child lives with, okay? If that parent is now remarried, the step parent's information will need to be used as well. Example, Johnny lives with mom and stepdad. Mom and stepdad are actually legally married. So if they are legally married and he is looking at going to college, then not only is mom's information is going to be used because that's who he lives with, but also stepdad's information will be used because that is who she's currently married to. Okay? Alrighty. Now, after you complete the FAFSA, you will get a student aid report or a SAR report that comes to you via email 3 to 5 days after processing. And as I mentioned, it will be sent out to all of the schools that you listed. Now, we understand that if you are currently a senior or not, life changes. So the FAFSA this year for students who will be starting college in 2023, 2024, or those who are returning, they will use tax income from 2021. So that's parent information as well as student information, okay? So that is your return that you filed in 2022. Lots of numbers. Don't worry. Follow along with me. I'll make sure you understand. You're always going to use your prior tax information when you are completing your FAFSA, okay? But what if what was reported in 2021 is no longer true in your current situation? If it has negatively impacted or decreased the amount of income that you have coming in because of employment termination, furloughs, hours being cut, or reduction of income, marital status change, parents becoming sick or disabled, or a death of a parent, these are all reasons to communicate with your financial aid office that life looks different, and it allows them to go back in and potentially modify that expected family contribution number. Only they can go back in and modify that based upon the information you tell them And they may ask you to provide documentation of these things as well. So just be prepared to share that with your financial aid office if there's a decrease. Oftentimes I'm asked, well, what if I make more money? They'll catch that next year, okay? So you just report 2021 tax income information. If there's a decrease, you have a conversation with your financial aid office. If there's an increase, they'll catch it on your taxes the next year. All right, so we talked about that FSA ID. Student and parent will need separate documents, separate FSA IDs. You want to make sure you have all of the documents needed to complete your FAFSA. Know that they're going to give you a SAR report, a student aid report, 3 to 5 days. It's kind of like an estimation of what type of aid you will receive. But ultimately, once you've been admitted to your college, they will give you a financial aid award letter, and that will be specific and more accurate information. Don't forget to contact your financial aid office to explain any decreases of income your family has experienced. Okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit about the cost of attendance. So I had a great conversation with Krista and Monica earlier about cost of attendance. And actually, in part one, we talked a little bit about this as well. So going to college is not just your tuition and fees, you guys. You also have to take into account your living expenses. So whether that's on campus or off campus, if you're commuting, so that's transportation, whether that's bus, taxi, Uber, all of that is considered, as well as any meal plans that's required because you live on campus. Books and supplies, important as well. And miscellaneous fees would be scrubs, insurance that we talked about earlier, maybe a background check that's required for your program. Maybe your program requires you to take uh, a beginner's test, and there's a fee for that. All of that is considered miscellaneous fees. So when we look at the cost of attendance, it's going to be your direct cost, which is your tuition and fees. So you actually going to your class, like your class, that is tuition and fees. And then everything else would be indirect cost. So cost of attendance, direct and indirect cost, minus your expected family contribution will be your need. That is currently how it is done. I will tell you there's some simplifications that are happening with the FAFSA that are supposed to go into effect 24, 25, and that may change how this is calculated, but they have a plan in place, so we're going to trust them. All right, so we're going to briefly go over these federal programs. So this is money that you have to complete the FAFSA for, and not every student will be eligible for it. Some of these are going to be needs-based, some of these are going to be experience-based, but either way, just know that there are some federal programs that require you to complete the FAFSA. So the Pell Grant requires the FAFSA. It is based upon need, and currently the award is $68.95. Okay, we're expecting a small bump, but we're still waiting to hear what that's going to be. And this is only for undergraduate programs. Then you have the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. This is up to $4,000. So when you hear other friends, parents, students, or schools talking about running out of funds, this is what they're talking about. There's a limited amount of funds and it's not available to every single school. So at one school, you may be awarded this federal supplemental education grant, but at another school, you may not, and you may wonder why you haven't received the same type of aid. Not every school receives this funding. Once again, this is going to be based upon need. So if you receive the FAFSA, if you receive Pell Grant, more than likely you're going to be eligible for the SEOG. Okay. Let's see. So now we have the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant. This one is the same amount as the Pell Grant, so $68.95 for the year. The FAFSA must be completed, but you cannot be Pell eligible. Okay. So this is available for parents or guardians who were members, this is available for students who had a parent or guardian who was a member of the U.S. Armed Forces and perished as a result of the war. Okay, after 9/11. So there's some funding for those students and families. Now, if we have any future educators in the building, there's a Teach grant that's available for people who are interested in going into education. So it's up to $4,000 a year. You must be enrolled in an eligible program and agree to teach in a critical subject area or teach in a geographical needs area, a critical geographic needs area for 4 years within 8 years. Okay. So you have some different criteria there. If you fail to do any one of those, so if you teach in a subject area, a critical subject area, but you only teach for 3 years, you won't receive um, the the grant. You will actually have to repay it back. Or if you do the other, if you teach in a critical geographic needs area, for less than 4 years, then you're going to miss the mark as well. Okay, so you have to do 4 years and either teach in a critical geographic needs area with those 4 years, or 4 years and teach in a critical subject needs area. Now, the thing that we like to point out with this Teach grant is that it appears to be a grant, and it is. You have the ability to have that money forgiven, but if you fail to meet the teaching requirements, you do have to pay this loan back along with the interest rate. So that's connected to it. So if you have any questions about that, your financial aid office at your institution would be the best person to speak to. All right, so we're going to hop into scholarships. This is what my students love to talk about, and I probably take a different approach to scholarships than what most people would. Um, so here's a couple of things. Never pay for scholarships or scholarship searches, okay? They should be giving you money, not the other way around. Never buy anything based on a promise of a scholarship. Once again, they should be giving you money. And then never believe anything that says millions of dollars of unused scholarships. Those are just some of the red flags that we at South Carolina Student Loans see, that our students have experienced in the past, and we just want to give you all some red flags to look for. Here are some of our favorite scholarship searches. So FastWeb has been around since I've been in school. Scholarships.com, the same. Going Merry is new, which is the one that I wanted to tell you guys about. So not only does it connect you to scholarships based upon how you've answered some questions, but it also has a FAFSA Made Easier section in there where you can literally answer the FAFSA questions on their website and essentially import it into the FAFSA, and they ask it in a very layman's terms way to allow for little to no confusion. So if you ever feel like you need some additional help, it's late at night and you don't have access to myself or someone on a collegiate campus, because it's late at night, Going Merry would be a great place for you to explore that as well. You've probably seen this cute little cat floating around York's library, okay? Miss Krista has put these out for you guys to pick up and has shared these with different branches, and I thank you for that. We do a 1K giveaway every single month where we give away $1,000. We truly give it away, you guys. Yes, we're a student loan organization, but we also want to make sure that we are giving back to our community, and this is how we do it. So we draw one random name of a high school junior, senior, or their parent. You can also do this while you're in college as well, and we'll call you, we'll email you, let you know that you've won, and you just have to respond back to us, okay? Once you accept it, then we will be able to send the money to your school on your behalf. Now, here's the caveat. You got to call us back. You've got to let us know that you actually want the money. We've had families say that they no longer want the money when they win, and we've had months where we've had to call multiple students because they would not call us back. So just remember that you registered for this no effort giveaway and respond back when we call, because we're trying to give you money for college, okay? So it's super duper easy. Go to our website, scstudentloan.org/no effort. Put your name, your telephone number, and your email in. It's easy as that. No GPAs, no test scores, no essays. and you could potentially win $1,000. And oh, you guys, once a year, we give away $10,000. This is also good for in-state or out-of-state schools, but you must be a South Carolina resident to win, okay? This is easy money. Register today. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the tips that I have for scholarships, okay? You may or may not hear these from other places. If you hear other places, fantastic. If not, I just want to give you some tips, okay? So, first things first, look locally. In the last video that we did, part 1, Miss Krista said that you can always come to the library and they can help you with your scholarship search. I will I'm not gonna promise you, but more than likely, you guys, they're they have a list of maybe some local scholarships, some community or civic organizations that are local and can help you with paying for college as well. So don't forget to look locally. If your parents are a part of any sororities or fraternities or any group organizations, check out their websites for types of scholarships as well. If you are working and your parents are working, ask the employer, hey, do you have any educational benefits? You never know. Sometimes students can get money from their parents, employers, because their parents work there. And the same thing, if you work at like a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's, I've even heard some of the retail stores have educational benefits that are available to you guys. Ask the questions. The worst they can do is say no. And that could be money that's available to you. My favorite one is probably turn lemon into lemonade. Okay. Lemons into lemonade. What do I mean by that? That means if you've had any type of life hurdle, it can be related to education or not, and you've had to go through life with this thing. Let's take something simple. Being left-handed. You guys, there's a scholarship out there for left-handed individuals. That's it. That's it. Just because you're left-handed. Everything is set up for a right-handed person, right? There's more right-handed people around in the world. So they created a scholarship for left-handed individuals, okay? So if you have a hurdle, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, it doesn't matter. I would encourage you to uh, type in whatever that issue is, whatever that hurdle is, whatever that lemon is, and put scholarship behind it and see what type of things pop up. Okay? You will probably be pleasantly surprised. Okay, so my last 2 tips for scholarships would be when you get to college, don't forget to continue to look for scholarships. So that freshman year, when that scholarship said, hey, um, you need to have leadership experience or you need to have community service and you know you don't have any, I would encourage you to take your freshman year to find opportunities to build those, okay? So that way you are ready to apply for that scholarship next year. And then just remember that small money adds up. So that just means that if you look locally, you're usually going to find like smaller scholarships, like $250, $500, when everybody else is looking for the tens of thousands of dollars because they're trying to get all of their education paid for. I'm not saying don't go for those, but I'm saying a lot of people are looking at those. So by looking local, applying for those smaller scholarships, you can easily potentially win money to help you cover your books and miscellaneous fees that we talked about before. Okay. All right. So some state programs. You've probably heard about these a good bit. So we're going to quickly go through these and I will email out this presentation to Miss Krista so she has it and can share it with you. Just keep in mind that this presentation is for this year, the 22-23 school year, and this information will be changing as they make modifications to it. So if you look at this list from 1 to 5, look at it from a hierarchy of not one is better than the other, but there's rigor, lots of rigor for 1, and it decreases as you go down to 5, okay? So, first things first, these are all state programs, okay? So, being that these are all state programs, you do have to be a South Carolina resident at the time of high school graduation or college enrollment. You have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. You have to be in a degree seeking program at a public or private institution. So that just means that you have to be enrolled in at least an associate's degree. And this last bullet here says certified that he or she has never been convicted of any felonies and has not been convicted of any alcohol or drug misdemeanors. I know it's weird that we're talking about this. This will never be you, but sometimes we get caught up with the wrong friends at the wrong places at the wrong time, and we end up with things on our records that should have never been there. So I would encourage you to choose your friends wisely, okay? Now, I know that there are some strong opinions about student loans right now. So I want you all to massage your temples just for a bit, soften your hearts so you can hear the information that will be shared. Okay, you guys? I want you all to be knowledgeable about how to navigate student loans. Student loans are not bad. Let's start there. I would not have the education that I currently have from a South Carolina institution if it wasn't for student loans. Okay, so I used a combination of things to obtain my higher education. So I don't want you to be afraid to utilize and leverage loans, just like we would leverage loans for a mortgage when we're buying our house or for an auto loan because we want that nice new car. Okay, so if you're worth those two things, then surely you are worth pursuing your higher education, right? Okay. Okay, I feel that everybody has taken a deep breath and we are ready to talk about loans. Okay, so this first loan program we're going to talk about is the Federal Direct Loan Program. This is, as it mentions, federal money, and it is a loan. So a loan means that you will absolutely have to pay this money back. I know. It's not quite like asking your mom for $20 and saying, I'll pay you back, and then she really doesn't expect you to pay you back. The federal government wants their money back, you guys. Okay, so we're going to talk about the different types of federal loan programs that the government has. Okay, so the first one is the direct loan. It is made in the student's name. It is not credit based. It requires the FAFSA. There are two different types of loans that are made in students' names. You have your subsidized loan and you have an unsubsidized loan, and they pretty much look the same. Okay, so they have the same limits for the each year that you're enrolled in school. They both require the FAFSA. They both have a 6 month grace period and they both have the same interest rate of a 4.99, and they charge an origination fee. You're like, girl, what is an origination fee? It means that the federal government is going to take that 1.075% off of your loan amount before it even makes it to your school. Okay. So they get a little bit on the front end. All right. Now, what makes them different? Your subsidized loan is a needs-based loan, right? So we talked about needs-based grants earlier that the federal government has. Well, they have a needs-based loan as well. And this one is saying that the government will pay for your interest while you're in school. We like that. That's great. You won't start applying interest to your loan until after you exit school. Okay. Now keep in mind, I said exit and not graduate. Two different things. Because sometimes we stop because life happens or because higher education is no longer where we see ourselves. And 6 months after you exit or leave school, you will then be required to start paying your loan back at currently that 4.99%. Now, I'll just disclose information here. I can tell you my interest rate is higher than that from when I went to school. So that fluctuates based upon the market, okay? So that's your subsidized loan. The government's going to pay for your interest while you're in school, but you are responsible for that interest once you leave school, okay? Your unsubsidized loan, which is the more common loan, is not a needs based, but they're going to defer your interest. So they're going to let you go through school, not worry about your interest rate until after you exit. Okay. The government is not going to pay for this, they're just going to defer it while you're in school. Okay. And as I mentioned, the loan amounts or the loan limits are going to be the same. Your first year, 5,500, second year, 6,500, and your third year throughout grad school is going to be 7,500. That is if you are a dependent student, okay? And this can show up a couple different ways on your financial aid award letter, okay? So you can have all subsidized, you can have all unsubsidized, or you can have a combination, but it cannot go over that 5,500 if you are a dependent student. If I'm talking to some of my parents who are looking at going back to school, no worries, this bumps up by $4,000 because there are going to be some federal and state aid programs that you're not going to be eligible for as a independent student. As an adult student, you won't be eligible for. So they bump it up about $4,000. Okay, so what are you supposed to do with all of this money that you have taken out to help you pay for college? Well, they do have some programs to help you with it. Okay, so you have the forgiveness for teachers. So if you're an educator, they have some forgiveness programs for you that are available on the federal level. And then we also have the public service loan forgiveness, which parents probably heard a ton about in the fall. Students, this is just an opportunity for you to have income-based driven payments. So they're going to look at your income and say, oh, you can't really afford that $300 loan. We're going to say you can afford this lower amount loan. And once you pay for 10 years or 120 on-time payments, any remaining balance will be forgiven. You do have to apply for this, and we encourage anyone who has direct loans to go to the studentaid.gov website or to their loan servicer to find out more information about the public service loan forgiveness. South Carolina has a teacher loan program. We administer that at South Carolina Student Loan on behalf of the Commission on Higher Education. So this is only available for South Carolina residents. You must be an education major, and the FAFSA is not required. But as you can see, it does require you to be in the top 40% of your high school graduating class, and it does have some SAT and ACT scores that are required for this. So if you looked at part one, Ms. Krista asked, well, can your SAT and ACT scores affect any loans or any of your financial aid? This is a perfect example of how it could affect a loan. Now, this is a forgivable loan, but you must agree to teach in South Carolina in a critical subject area or a critical geographic needs area. If you do both at one time, then you will get 33 and a third forgiven. So after 3 years, all of your funds have been forgiven under this program. But if you do one and not the other, still in the state of South Carolina, 20% will be forgiven each year that you are teaching. Okay, so that means that you would need to teach for 5 years. As you can see, the limits are on the screen. Freshman and sophomore year, $2,500. Juniors on up, $7,500. Now, parents, you may have heard of this federal Direct Plus loan, okay? This is going to be a loan made to the parent, so it's only in the parent's name, but it's on behalf of the undergraduate student. So that means that this student does not have a 4-year degree or a bachelor's degree, okay? This allows your institution or the federal government to evaluate you based upon your credit. It's relaxed standards. They haven't given us a specific number, but they're going to run your credit to see if you are eligible for this program. The FAFSA is normally not required for this, but you want to do what your school asks you to do. So if your school says, hey, we don't have a FAFSA on file for you, you have a balance, you might want to look at this Direct Plus loan. And because you don't have a FAFSA on file, complete this FAFSA because you might have some other money that you're eligible for. Complete the FAFSA. The goal is to help you graduate with as little debt as possible on your school side. So, parents, you can only take out up to the cost of attendance. So if you remember us talking about what cost of attendance included, I think in video 2, that was direct cost, the cost of your class, and indirect cost. So, for example, if you all were able to come up with, it costs $10,000 for your student to go to school, you all came up with $9,000 between paying out of pocket, federal aid, state aid, scholarships, and you were still short $1,000, parents, you could only take out $1,000 to cover up to what your student needed. You can't borrow more as a parent borrower. So the interest rate, the interest rate, you guys, is higher than the student direct loan. So it is at a 7.54 currently, and it is unsubsidized. So if you remember, unsubsidized means interest deferred, and you will be responsible for paying that back once your student exits school. And the origination fee, remember that's the amount that the federal government takes off the top, is going to be a 4.228. So they're going to take out that 4.228 off of that $1,000 before you actually have it sent to the school. Okay, so just keep all of that in mind. And you may say, well, my credit score is good. I shouldn't have a 7.54. And that's when parents will start looking at some private loan options to help their students pay for school. So at South Carolina Student Loan, we are known for our Palmetto Assistant Loan Program. This is available for South Carolina residents or students enrolled in a South Carolina school. That is it. That is who we serve. So if we have a resident who attends an out-of-state school, we will help them. And if we have an out-of-state student attending a South Carolina school, we will help them. But if we have a student in Georgia who is not a resident, they are not eligible for our Palmetto Assistant Loan Program. Okay. So we're trying to help the state of South Carolina, you guys, keep our talent pool here. Or if they go out of state, we want them to get the education and bring it on back home. So students and parents can borrow. You can have student only. You can have a student and a co-borrower. That would be a parent. Or you can have just a parent. So the student rates, actually, my rates are not right, you guys. So the rates went up just a little bit. So I believe our student rate is at a 5.13, so it went up by 1%. And our parent rate is going to be, I want to say, at a 4.2. Don't quote me. It's on the website, you guys. I apologize for my slides not being up to date. But that's where those interest rates start. And our average rate is going to be less than the parent plus loan. So normally we see rates of 7% or lower, okay? There are no origination fees, so we don't charge you anything to have us send money to your school. So if you borrow $1,000, $1,000 will make it to your school. Our application is completely online, and there is an instant decision there to help you navigate your journey. So in session one, when Ms. Krista asked, when should we start looking for loan products? Usually, students and parents will start looking once they honestly receive a bill from their institution. Now, one of the great things is that we will have a pre-approval opportunity on our website. We are launching a new website. So if you want to at least know, will I be approved for this loan? We will offer that. So that's like a peace of mind that if and when you do need something, you know you're already pre-approved and you know what your interest rates will be, which is going to be super duper helpful next year. And then, you guys, we have this new program. I like to call it my baby. It is called Bold Career Pathway. Okay, so this is technically a loan, but it's a little different because we are partnering with employers who are willing to pay back your student loan on your behalf. Crazy. I know. So, what does this mean? This bold initiative was started because we wanted to make sure we were helping more students across the state of South Carolina. So not only is this not a credit-based program, it also has a fixed rate that if you do this program right, you never have to worry about, okay? It also has wraparound services provided by the outreach team. So myself and my colleague, we provide services while you're enrolled, we check on you, we're a cheerleader for you, and then if and when life hits you, we are there to help you with resources to help you not only stay enrolled in school, but we want to help you get to graduation so your employer can actually pay your loan back on your behalf. Okay. So we have some great partners across the state, very heavily in the healthcare field right now. So if you're looking at nursing, LPN, ADN, BSN, we have some that are looking for cardiovascular sonographers or ultrasound techs, medical laboratory techs. And it's growing, you guys. So stay tuned because Bold is going to be doing some great things. And if I didn't mention, Bold stands for Better Outcomes, Less Debt. Yes, a student loan organization wants to help you graduate with as little debt as possible. And one of the ways that we found that we can do that is by connecting you to an employer before you graduate. So it's simple, you guys. You could go to our website, complete the contact us form. Our loan advisors will follow up with you and we'll walk you through that process and let you know all of our employers that we have in place as of today. That list is growing each and every week. So I encourage you to stay tuned to what we have and the partnerships that we are building across the state. So not only healthcare, we're having some conversations in IT, in education, in advanced manufacturing, in transportation and logistics. You guys, this is going to be great. So if you're looking for an alternative to a traditional loan, Bold may be for you. So if you've enjoyed this presentation and you want me to come out to your community organization or to your school, suggest this information or this presentation to your school counselor, I'll be more than glad to come and travel to you guys. But until then, here's my contact information. My outreach manager's info is there as well. If you have a question about any of our loan products, you can reach out to our staff, our advisors that are local and answers the phones and chats and emails all day from 8 to 5. So thank you all so much for allowing me to spend some time with you all today on this happy Monday. And I'm going to turn it back over to Krista.
All right. Well, we so appreciate you being here. I know I learned a lot tonight. And so I want to thank you from the York County Library, and just know that we're going to share this information on our Discord channel, but we're also going to put it on our York County Library YouTube channel. So you can go back and review it. You can watch it when you have a chance, watch it when you have time. Maybe you're a junior, you're not 100% ready for it yet, but you can refer back to this when it's your senior year and it is time for you to start filling out those loans and you've forgotten everything that we talked about tonight. We can go back, we can watch it again. And if you have any questions, you can come to the teen section at the York County Library, the main branch in Rock Hill. And we can either connect you with South Carolina Student Loan or give you some of their information so that you can contact them yourself. We can share our scholarship information with you. We can also show you our information for prepping for that ACT and the SAT that we found out is important. And so we have some resources at the library that can help you with that. And just know that we're all here for you. We all want you guys to succeed and have the best future for you. So I appreciate you so much, Destra, for coming out tonight and speaking with us about all this. And thank everyone who watched and listened and sent in questions. So thank you again. And let us know if we can help you. Yeah, thank you.